So, morning, Lee. How are we? How's Align the Arrows?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Very happy to be here. Again, a couple of years into the business now, making that 2-year mark has been an absolute a revelation that we've got to this point after what's happened in the last 12 months.
I was going to say it's always good to celebrate a business birthday, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good. It's a good thing to do. Again, I say to my clients, it's often a good time to sit back and reflect as well to see what you've actually achieved.
And 2 years is a really, really good time to do that reflection as well, isn't it? So do you want to tell me a little bit about why you set Align the Arrows up? Where did it all start from, your journey?
Yeah, so when I started off, obviously corporate land. Mum and Dad had sort of driven into me that you work hard, you get a pension, you get a job, and you stay there forever. My dad was a train driver for 40 years, and that was the kind of mentality that was driven into me. But when I first started out in London, working in the corporate banks there, it became very apparent that if you wanted to move and progress, you needed to change companies. So I was never really settled into this long one job or one business type of thing. But then as I sort of progressed round and round and round different banks, I learned so much about the strategic side of things that I realised that was where I liked to play. And then when it came to start my own business, it was never really something that I'd contemplated doing, because that whole security of you work hard and you stay in a job forever. Why would I want to take the risk of being my own boss? So then it was only sort of 3 years ago, I thought, hang on a minute, with the knowledge that I've learned and the things I've gained, there is actually a chance now that I can actually make a business out of this. So it's sort of a late germination, if you like, of the idea about my own business.
It is. I've taken that step too, and it is a hard step to take, but it's very rewarding. What would you say that have been your real highlights over the past 2 years?
So again, it sounds almost a little cliched with the type of business that I do. So coaching other people, it's the biggest successes for me are seeing the successes of the clients that I'm working with. And again, with the backdrop of everything that's gone on in the last 12 months, it's been so rewarding to see that businesses that have potentially, some of them were even, one of my clients was potentially going to sell it off and then just retain some of the money from the business. Another client, their industry completely stopped, so they couldn't do what they used to do. So they had to change things around, but helping them and supporting them to actually come out the other side of it. And both of those two businesses, as the examples, are thriving now to the point of they're going to need to take more staff on. So it's really rewarding to see that that's what's happening to their businesses. And submit to mine, the confidence and the ability that my business has shown over the last 12 months too, it's a success for me to see that that's the sort of stuff that I can do in my own business as well.
Do you think, has COVID played a part in your business, as in, has it caused you any challenges? Has it made you have to think about things a bit different, pivot the service that you offer? Yeah,
so the service that I offer hasn't really changed too much. I mean, I'll come on to that a bit later on. I think that I've actually created my own tool set. I'm completely independent now, which is something that evolved over the last 12 months, but not necessarily as a result of COVID. What's happened is that I've just had to tailor how I deliver my services. So I've used online meeting platforms for years and years, but the extent to which I've used them at the moment is almost everything I do with my clients is online. So what I actually deliver is pretty much the same, but it's the delivery style that has had to change. So the actual offering hasn't changed too much, and it's just the way I've had to do it.
So is there one piece of advice that you would give to someone starting out in business for the first time? Obviously, there's a lot of people who maybe after the past year thinking about how they could restructure their lives, restructure their working pattern. Is there any advice you would give?
Yeah, so again, to try and summarize that into one thing, I could talk at length just on that one on its own. But I think that I want to paraphrase the thought, the mindset on this one, because it's the mindset I'd like to just, there's one tip, it's that mindset. And it is that you just cannot know what you don't know. And that's the thing at the beginning, when you start out, you think, I think it's almost like a pressure you put on yourself. So I need to know what I'm going to do. I need to know how much money I'm going to make and when I'm going to make it. But there are so many things that you won't know and won't uncover until you take those first steps, that it's almost be brave and take the steps, because once you start to learn, you can iterate and develop. And just make sure that if you are doing that sort of stuff and you are learning, that you actually apply that learning as well. So it's not just a case of starting the business on day one and that's what the business is going to be for the next 10 years. You've just got to be brave, take those first steps, start that learning process. You can then start to iterate what it is that you're going to do until you settle on the thing that you're going to do.
It is, yeah. I think having that clarity, isn't it, and having that step back and thinking about where you want to be is quite important. If obviously you're coming up to you're celebrating your second birthday now, is there something that you think, God, if I could go back in time to 2 years when I'm just starting out, I wish I'd have done this differently, or I wish I'd have, from a business perspective, I'd done something different. Is there anything that you think, oh, I really wish I'd done and thought about this more?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I've done, again, last 12 months, is just refreshed on the core value side of things. So again, an iterative approach to what you're doing. So you're constantly refreshing and updating is what I recommend every business is doing anyway. But certainly from a core values perspective, one of the things that I've got there now that's clear is walking the walk. So I do everything. So everything that I coach around having an accountability partner, having a business plan, having regular check-ins and quarterly reviews, all of those kinds of things are all of the things that I do in my business. But for the first 4 months, I didn't. And that's the sort of thing I wish I'd have done that from day one, because it makes such a difference. I did set my own plan out. So when I launched the business, I'm not right, this is what I'm going to be, this is how it's going to work. I created all my core values and everything. But then 4 months passed and I hadn't really checked in on it, because I kind of made the conscious leap that I knew what was happening. And I knew where I was, I knew how I was performing, but it's still saying it out loud and saying I didn't achieve X is a really powerful thing, because even if you haven't achieved it, you can still learn, well, why didn't I achieve that? And what can I do differently to make sure I actually do those things? So yeah, definitely walking the walk and doing what I should do or what I ask my clients to do. If I'd done that from day one, that would have been a lot more powerful, would have accelerated things quicker.
Yeah. So if you are, if somebody's considering coaching with you, what is the first thing that you would sort of get them to think about? Is there something that you, when you work with a company, is there a starting point normally? Is there a trigger point within a business? What would you say would be the thing that they think about, and what do they need to think about with working with you?
Yeah, so the first point on that one is that when it comes to a good point to start, I think sometimes it's very easy to wait for things to align in the right way. So I'm going to wait for this to happen and wait for that to happen. But ultimately, there's no right time. There's no case of right, I am ready now to do this thing. Certainly the coaching that I offer, I provide that accountability to people. So I help them to check in and make sure that they're being realistic about where they are and what they're doing. But in terms of when the start point happens, that can happen at any time. So someone really could just pick up the templates that I've got, so the free PDFs and things. People can start on those and work with them. It doesn't mean that I need to be there from day one, holding their hand and walking them through things. People can start doing things on their own. So I'd say there's never a right time to start with business planning. You should always have a business plan in place. So if anyone that hasn't got one, it's just now to go ahead and take advantage of the free resources and make sure that you can get a start on this before you've wasted another 3 months and not quite done the things you wanted to do.
Yeah, I think you've just answered my next question there, because I did want to ask really, is there a good starting point for working with a coach? Is it more sort of new business startup, or is it sort of when they're 2-3 years into their journey, or is it when they're hitting a growth stage? Or
yeah, so it'll be different for different people. From a coaching perspective, the idea is there that you obviously generally tend to need to have that little bit of extra cash flow that will support. If someone's going to pay me money to help them and coach them, they need to make sure that the cash flow they're spending on me is going to be returned. It needs to be that I'm giving them that value plus more. So it's going to be around cash flow in terms of getting somebody to come in and help. But in terms of the starting point, whether that's at the beginning, the middle, or 2-3 years down the line, it's going to be totally dependent on when someone feels like they've got a bit of a blockage. And that's normally when you think, well, I've been doing this thing. And the most common clients that I pick up are those, I've been doing this now for 2, 3, 4 years, and I'm just not making that step to the next level. I may have had 100 grand of business coming in this year. I expected to get to 150. It didn't happen. So how can I push through that barrier, and how can I make things happen? I set out to do this project, but this project has been going on for 12 months and it hasn't happened. How can I get this project to actually go on and take it to the next stage and drive the business forward? So anybody who wants to pick up and work with a coach can do it at any point, but generally speaking, those that come through are those that are frustrated because they can't make the growth they wanted to.
And what would you say the benefits are of working with you? So obviously someone's come to you for coaching. They may not be sure of what the coaching process is about. They know they need help, support. what would you say the benefits to a company of having you on board?
So it does come back to that word again, accountability. So I mentioned it a few times. It's that thing where it's very easy to set out a plan and say, right, this month, this quarter, this year, I want to achieve X, Y, and Z. But then actually having someone there that's going to ask you and question why you didn't achieve those certain things. And as I said, when I was looking at my own business, it's all well and good. You can say, well, I didn't do this because of, or COVID meant I had to do this thing instead. Well, I got really, really busy with that. Something else came in instead. All of these things distracted you. And again, they can be, it's very common that the justifications are true. They are really true and valid questions. But at the same time, having that coach there that's going to say to you, okay, but at the same time, the things you wanted to achieve that you haven't done, without having done those things, the business won't make a step forward. So how do you then unlock and make sure that you're able to get the things done that you need to get done? Because again, the accountability isn't a case of just telling people off, you didn't do that thing, that you're naughty, you must do it next time. It's about trying to understand why those things weren't able to be achieved and find the reasons that you can actually put things in place to help you to achieve them. Because it could be that then it needs to be some outsourcing. Well, that thing came on and it was, you needed to outsource it, or actually you just took something in that was a really, really shiny thing. You decided to build your own website and make a new website. You didn't need to do that thing, so you just picked up something else instead. And sometimes that's what it is. Accountability is just making sure that there's a conversation both ways, almost like a mirror being held up and saying, right, did you really stop yourself from doing them things, or did something else stop you? And making sure that you've got that accountability on your side.
So the accountability certainly seems what a lot of business owners do need. For you, I'm going to hold you to account a little bit here. So what are your plans for the next 2 years? Do you have plans in place where you want Align the Arrows to be and where you as a coach want to be?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I turn around and said to you now I didn't have a vision for my own business, that would be a little bit I can't remember the right term for it, but a little bit hypocritical. But certainly the plans for me are that I want to have more growth. And it's going to be a common thing for most people that at the moment want to see that growth happening. But my vision is that I want to be that the most supportive and thought-provoking coaching in the East Midlands. And again, this is a long-term journey. I started out a couple of years ago and with an idea in mind of just wanting to help as many businesses as possible, but making sure that the pandemic has just temporarily changed how I do things isn't going to stop the growth I want to happen. It's not that usual that you have someone who can try and be supportive and on your side while you're taking the journey through building your own business. And then on the thought-provoking side, it is that aspect of there are normally multiple ways to do certain activities, and it's making sure that people are able to look at each thing subjectively and say, how do we best make a business out of this? How do we successfully grow this and take it forward? And being able to take those questions and helping people to take those next steps is definitely the thing's going to happen. And more clients that we can have and more people we can help and support, the better.
No, well, I'm really pleased to be sort of having this chat with you today and sort of helping celebrate your 2 years in business. It is an achievement, and sometimes we do hide behind things a little bit and we don't celebrate. So it's really good to sort of have this chat today. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thank you, Claire. Thank you for obviously hosting and having me along to support the journey.
Thank you. Right.